In today's video, we'll be making this flared sleeve v-neck dress. I'll be using the basic bodice block and the basic skirt block from Pattern Lab, which will be linked down below. Starting with the back skirt block, trace just before the dart and then rotate the first dart closed. Repeat to the second dart, then trace around the rest of the skirt, stopping at the bottom. I made my skirt 16 inches long, but you can make it however long/short that you would like. Mark that and draw a line coming out of that point at 90 degrees and then blend into the bottom. Take the front skirt block, trace just before the dart and then rotate the dart closed, and then trace around the rest of the skirt, stopping at the bottom. Mark the length and then draw a line coming out of that point at 90 degrees and then blend into the bottom. Add 1/2 inch seam allowance all around. Trace the front bodice block just before mid-shoulder and the bottom of the dart. Rotate the dart closed at the bust point and trace the rest of the block to the mid-shoulder mark. Here I'm just showing like I accidentally rotated the dart tip, or at the dart tip, so I had to redo it and rotate at the bust point. This will change like the whole shape of things, so make sure you rotate at the bust point. Mark a point at center front the same height as the bust point, connect to the left dart leg to create a v-neck. Mark your bust radius from the bust point. Only a 1/2 circle is necessary. Draw a line from the circle to the corner of the underarm. Cut out the top and bottom bodice pieces as shown. Draw a line through the middle of the dart and cut to the bust point, then cut up to the bust point from the opposite line. It's parallel to the original center front. Tape the top dart closed and cut off the excess. Draw a line perpendicular to the neckline connecting to the bust point. Cut to the bust point, then rotate up half an inch. Draw a new line from shoulder to center front as shown. This makes sure that the neckline doesn't it's not loose, like it stays flat against your chest. Add paper under, cut out the dart, then add half an inch seam allowance all around except for a 1/4 inch at the neckline. I added seam allowance before for some reasons, that's why you can see it, but just do it after because it makes it easier. Add half an inch seam allowance all around the bottom front bodice piece except at center front. We'll be cutting the piece out on fold. Trace the back bodice block, shortening the shoulder to 2.5 inches to match the front bodice. Mark the dart and add half an inch all around, including center back. For the sleeve, draw a line equal to the armhole measurement. Mine was 16 inches. Draw a line 3 inches long at the center and a half-inch line on each end. Use a curved ruler and connect the lines. Mark 2 lines in between the sides and centers. Cut out the sleeve, then cut up the lines to the rounded part, leaving a bit attached. Draw a line, tape the middle of the sleeve on it, and open it 1 inch on each side of the line, then open the other cuts 1 inch on each side. Smooth out and add 1/2 inch seam allowance. Add gather lines for reference to the rounded side, just so you don't get confused when you're sewing. You can just look back at it and know which side to gather. Trace the necklines of the front and back bodice matched at the shoulders. Draw a straight line at center front and redraw into the 2.5 inch wide facing. Add 1/2 inch seam allowance to center back. Take the back bodice panels and put a pin through the dart tip, and then fold the dart legs right sides together and pin. Use a bobbin thread as a guide to sew the dart from dart legs to dart tip. No back stitching, just continue sewing off the edge for a few stitches and leave about 2 inches of loose thread hanging. Take the front top bodice panels and put a pin through the dart tip, and then fold the dart legs right sides together and pin. Pin the top bodice panels to the front bodice panel right sides together and sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Pin the front bodice to the back bodice right sides together at the shoulders and sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Pin the back skirt panels to the front, right sides together, and sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Iron in 1/8 inch of the sleeve's hem and then fold the hem and iron again. Sew down the sleeve hem, then switch to a longer stitch and sew 1/8 inch away from the raw edge. Pivot 1 stitch and sew beside previous line 1/8 inch away, no backtracking. Gather the sleeve until the length is equal to the armhole opening. Pin the sleeve to the armhole, right sides together, and sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Pin the bodice sides, right sides together, and sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Pin the bodice to the skirt, right sides together, and sew at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Sew the facing center front right sides together at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Pin the facing to the neckline of the dress right sides together and sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Turn the dress inside out and understitch the facing. Press the seam allowance towards the facing and sew down the seam allowance, then iron down the facing. I added a zipper to the dress off camera, but I'll link a video on how to do that below. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. See you in the next video.